Welcome to the Deep in State presented by Eclipse. I'm Nick Hawks. On today's episode, we have Daniel from Hotspotty. Super excited to have him on. This episode is sponsored by Eclipse Labs. Eclipse is building Ethereum's fastest layer 2, powered by the Solana virtual machine. Eclipse combines Solana's performance and scalability with Ethereum's security to get the best of both worlds. You can read more about Eclipse mainnet at eclipse.builders. We'll have a little bit more on them later in the show. Before we get started, remember to hit the like and subscribe and ring that bell button. That alerts you to when the next show drops and helps us bring great guests like Daniel on the show. Daniel, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here finally.
I'm super excited to have you on. Now, you've got some super exciting news about this DePIN Hub stuff. You're launching a competitor to this show, which I'm so pumped on. And then you've got the DePIN Hub itself. Tell me a little bit about both of those.
Yes, okay. I can start talking about DePIN Hub. It's like, of course, I guess a lot of people know already, like Hotspotty, the fleet management that we built for Helium. That was like 3 years ago. It's crazy, right? Time flies. But then we noticed the growth or the genesis of this DePIN ecosystem from the Helium model. And then we just see like new projects coming up. You guys been working with a lot of them. It's been super exciting to see how things have been evolved in 1 year, right? Like it went from like Helium then to like 5 projects to over 100 projects. And then we realized that we've been really breathing this whole DePIN ecosystem like you guys for forever, how it feels like it, right? We know a lot of people, we know a lot of like investors, projects, builders, founders, etc. And we also managed to build a really interesting community through Hotspotty. Like we I think from Hotspotty alone, we have I think around 250,000 users on our platform. And we realized that, okay, what can we do to help the whole DePIN ecosystem? And after a lot of iterations, a lot of thinking, and like me, even Nick, we did a lot of like brainstorming with you too at the beginning of the year. That was pretty interesting. And we came up to, okay, how can we actually bring the community that we have to DePIN ecosystem as a broad? But not only that, but let's use DePIN as the gateway to onboard millions of people into crypto as well, right? So yeah, I like to say that DePIN is the gateway drug to Web3. It's how normal people, like, you know, your friends and your family, they're going to understand crypto because they're going to go through building installing like a Helium hotspot. That's how when we installed it, I think it was around 150 hotspots here in Europe. All our friends got into like they create like a crypto wallet. They start getting free money and they get interested. They talk to their friends talk to their friends, and that's the way that it's so much more inclusive. DePIN versus like DeFi, the other things, right?
Yeah.
But so what we realized that, okay, we have an interesting community. We know a lot of this ecosystem. How can we grow the whole space as a whole, not just like as one single project? And we came up, okay, let's build something that is going to aggregate all the news on this space, because there's a lot of small projects. I mean, projects, hopefully they're going to become very big in the future, but they're still quite tiny. It's really it's super tricky for you to follow what's happening. You need to, like, I personally joined, I don't know, 50 Discord channels, but most of them I can't follow because it's too much noise.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is like, okay, what if we do like a platform as the MVP that we're trying to build? The beta version of DePIN Hub is basically a news aggregator for the whole DePIN ecosystem. So we have like an index where we put all the DePIN projects. I think we have over 100 already. We want to try to put a little bit like a basic information for each project. What are they trying to solve? What are the main challenges? But one key thing that we're trying to do as well is like social metrics. We're tracking, for example, Twitter growth for each project, Discord growth, because I think this is a very interesting metric to show the product growing, product not growing. Of course, prices, and with that in mind, we also built this like massive news aggregator with like feeding YouTube videos, RSS feeds for all the different projects. That you just go to DePIN Hub, go to the news section. There's going to be like a timeline that you can see everything that's happening in the whole DePIN ecosystem for the over 100 projects. So I guess that's kind of like where we're starting. And then, of course, we're trying to get more people into our newsletter, because that's where we're going to really push a lot of like interesting content as well, and very unique content. And we're working with like copywriters. We're working with projects to get like interesting giveaways, things that only people who are in the newsletter are going to be able to enjoy, right?
Yeah. And that's DeepinHub.io is the website.
Yeah.
And then you guys are doing a podcast, and you guys have done a couple of giveaways recently. You did two with GeoNet. I think you probably have a couple more coming down the pipe. That's a
Yeah,
pretty cool reason
exactly.
to sign up to the newsletter.
We did one with Demo. We did
Mhm.
with GeoNet as well.
Yep.
Now we're actually working. We have the DePIN Hub podcast. What I'm like similar to you guys, working with like founders, looking but we're trying to like figure out different angles so we complement each other, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because I've been to some AMAs like in the last couple of weeks, and uh, there's DePIN is so big, like
Yeah.
you're just like solving so many different problems in so many different areas that there is space for everybody to thrive, and it's a small space. Everybody should be helping each other, not fighting. Um, so I think that's a message that I try to also post a lot.
Yeah, and you and I have very different viewpoints on the whole Deepin side. You're way more technologically capable than I am, so it's super cool to be able to get both sides. Where we say like, all right, well, here's what's going on with the founder. Here's maybe something behind their story or a quick update, and then you do something different where it's like, oh, here's the technology behind it. Here's what's going on. I mean, if I'm anything beyond me saying the letters AWS means I'm out of my technological boundary when it comes to AWS. Where you actually
Yeah.
understand what's going on in the buckets and the rest of it. So I think they'll be a really nice complement to each other.
Yeah, exactly. I think then there's space for even all their podcasts. I think EV3, like the investors, like they also have their own as well.
Yep.
It's really cool. And then we should do like one podcast that's everybody together as well, just grabbing some beers and really talking about what we love to do and what we talk all day anyway, right?
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting. Like for example, my girlfriend, she works in crypto, but she works in the legislation and regulation part on the European Union. So you can imagine the different conversations that we have at home. Like she's more like on the regulation side, and I'm on the technical side. And then up to the point that we get into agreement. So it's super interesting for me to try to understand more like in the legislation and the lawyers, the government, versus just me trying to be like the techie, right? And like, okay, I don't care about KYC, I don't want to pay taxes, stuff like that. So there's also this fight between crypto, but it's I think people talking, people bringing education. That's the best thing that can happen.
Yeah. And we're certainly poised for the kind of explosion of Deepin coming up, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's take a quick break and we'll talk about today's sponsor, Eclipse Labs. One of the cool parts about doing this show is we get to talk to tons of projects across the space, including back-end nerdy stuff that helps Deepin projects. One of those is today's show sponsor, Eclipse Labs. They're building Ethereum's fastest layer 2 to support several Deepin projects. Eclipse leverages the best parts of the modular stack, Solana for execution, Celestia for scalability, and Ethereum for security. Eclipse is committed to helping projects build on Deepin. Check them out at eclipse.builders and check out the interview we did with Neil at Eclipse if you haven't seen it. So, Daniel, that brings us to probably the most exciting part of what's happening right now, which is late November 2023, is I think you and I are both seeing similar things as far as it looks like the market is turning. Now, we're not going to call it and say that it's turned, but you and I have been, we've lived through this bear market. And what it looks like now is not what it looked like last summer or even early in this spring. What are you seeing on your side?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of DePIN projects popping up left and right. Like for example, I just came from Asia last week, like a couple of days ago actually, and on their side, there's a lot of cool things happening that we don't even know because of like language barriers. There's like they have actually a small ecosystem in like for example Hong Kong. There's a lot of accelerators working on DePIN projects that I believe they're gonna reach a level that then they're gonna try to like expand outside of China, outside of like Asia, and go to Europe and the US. So there's a lot of things happening that we don't really know yet. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to build this DePIN Hub. It's like the idea is like one website that you keep open in your browser all the time, and you can just like figure out like just check the news. There's like a big project index that we're trying to keep on improving, adding more content. One interesting thing that we like to put a little bit of fire, like a steer in the pot a little bit, is like we have a rankings page that we put like, for example, number of projects per blockchain. Like right now, for example, Ethereum is winning. I think Polygon second and third is Solana. So it's kind of like this fight, like a healthy fight, let's say, between the layer ones and layer twos to get more projects into them. We also have an index of all the investors that are backing DePIN projects, right? Because I think if you're trying to build a different project, get good funding, good investors, good backing, like, not just money, but like smart money. It's very important. So we're trying to like concentrate everything into this website. We've been working on this for like the past like 2 to 3 months, and it's still very early because our roadmap is pretty interesting, like it's pretty broad. But whatever we're trying to do now is already okay. We're going to launch when we have the minimum amount of value that you can bring to people, and then try to go from there.
Yeah, that they need in order to use it. Minimum amount of value. So yeah, and I think, I mean, we're going to see bad news come up with Deepin. They're, what is it? CZ pleaded guilty for fraud yesterday. So it's not like it's all sunshine and rainbows.
Definitely not.
We are going to see kind of the downsides as well. But I think we're in this space that at least I can see that there is an end to the tunnel, and there's like way off in the distance, there's some light at the end of that tunnel. And so it's kind of cool to see that, because for a long time that wasn't apparent.
I mean, we're building like I'm not building a Deepin project, but Deepin project are solving real problems, right? A lot of those times. So I like to say those are problems that can be solved without crypto. Crypto is just the fire, right? That makes it grow much faster. Deployment like grows much more broader once you have some sort of incentive. So I think that Deepin is definitely on this cycle, which is hopefully not too far from now. I mean, it's really hard to predict these things, right? It can go up and down.
We might get heartbroken on this for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, remember, don't never invest things that you're not willing to lose. I think that's a good one to put there. But there's a lot of interesting things happening, and definitely Deepin is going to be the core, at least on our world. It is already, but on Deepin, it's going to be much more on people's mouth on the crypto next cycle.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to see what you guys do with it. Check out DePINHub.io. Check out the podcast, which is on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you can find a podcast. You're going to find the DePIN Hub. And pumped to see you on there. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Yeah.